Hey, everybody. This is Albert Chang. I am part of the go-to-market global engagement team at Next 47. And we're very excited to have Cleve Pasarell here today to join us. Cleve, please, give us a little background. What do you do as your role, as the VP of Engineering for Revenue AI for Marketing at 6sense?
Hey, Albert. First off, thanks very much for having me on. Very excited to be here. So, yeah, I'm VP of Engineering for Revenue AI for Marketing at 6sense. We call it RAIM. That's our acronym. A little bit about 6sense first. So, we're a predictive intelligence platform that uses AI to help companies identify and engage potential buyers. And so, we have a couple of different products. One oriented towards marketing personas and one oriented towards sales personas. So basically, this involves a few different things. One, account-based marketing type of reporting and segmentation based on our intent data, taking those segments and trying to do interesting things with them, like activating them through marketing campaigns via advertising, email, or other channels. So I kind of oversee all of those technologies and then also pick up a lot of strategic initiatives across engineering as a whole.
I'm sure that you are also looking into AI and innovation and marketing. So I'd love to understand kind of how do you balance innovation with reliability when developing AI systems for a business critical function like revenue generation?
Yeah, this is a really tricky problem. And really, what it boils down to is deterministic systems versus probabilistic systems. And really trying to understand where your risk profile is and seeing if probabilistic systems are a good fit for your problem. Ideally, you want to always be pushing innovation. You want to out innovate your competitors, but only up to the extent that's like actually comfortable to like deliver your product, right? So you need to take a look at what you're doing and see if AI is a good fit in there. So, for instance, if I were a bank, I wouldn't want to probably put in like a generative AI widget that lets me like talk into it and say like, "Hey, I want to transfer money from my checking account to my IRA," and then
Hmm.
accidentally have it interpreted as like saying, "Okay, I want to transfer money from my checking account to IRA." Some
Yeah.
person named Ira. Like that would be bad, right? So, so their risk profile is going to be relatively low. But for a lot of other intents, your risk profile is going to be quite a bit higher than that. You can actually bear quite a few different things. So it's really just a question of figuring out how to stabilize your probabilistic model to your use case. And there's a few different ways you can do that. So in particular, you can always add more training data if you're building up a model yourself. Like more data, usually better outcomes, more robust. Secondly, you can keep a human in the loop. So if you can afford the extra time of having someone check on the result, you can have either the AI go back and check with a human every single time it's returning a result, or if you know it's returning confidence intervals. Anytime it is displaying a lack of confidence, it can send it to a human to try to verify its results. And then kind of lastly, you can break down problems that AI is solving and try to like really kind of think about what it's trying to solve, break it down into component pieces, and then maybe figure out if some of those component pieces can be deterministic. So like replace those with like static functions that your programming team has written, and then counterbalance that with AI pieces also. So you're kind of doing like a handoff between a probabilistic system to a deterministic system. And so some combination of all three of those approaches can stabilize your system.
And how do you think about generative AI, and how it will impact kind of marketing strategies for the next few years?
Oh yeah, this is going to be really interesting. So on the marketing side, so I think that marketers are going to be utilizing AI tools as a part of their day-to-day job from here on out, and they're going to be using them to generate more leads, generate higher quality leads, and generally use less labor to do so. What's going to happen in practice is they're going to spend less time grinding out marketing qualified leads and more time building out their strategy. So this should result in much richer, robust strategies overall. And, I think to get there, there's going to be a few different difference makers in generative AI, which they're going to be leaning on. So first off, with tools like 6sense, they're going to be measuring intent, like just trying to figure out, look at all the signals that are out there, and really trying to distill them down into something that's easy and comprehensible, and really understand a simple message or a simple action that they want to take. Secondly, summarizing states. So if you're looking at a really complex report, sometimes it can be difficult to figure out what it's really trying to say or what you should do based on that. And generative AI can be really useful for that. Just send a ton of data from a particular report into it and try to come up with some actionable insights from it. Then third, use agents to automate complex workflows. So we see marketers using tons of tools these days. They might have to plug in marketing campaigns into LinkedIn. They might have to go into another advertising platform, launch them there, run email campaigns, pick up different signals from different tools. Just generally taking some agents and trying to automate some of these workflows is going to be enormously powerful for them. Then lastly, hyper-personalization is, I think, another one that's really going to be rich moving forward. So what do I mean by hyper-personalization? So we've seen a lot of systems like marketing automation platforms, and they can send out email blasts to your customers or potential customers. And they're going to be very generalized in a lot of cases. You just have a consistent marketing message that you want to push out to everybody. When you're receiving an email from a friend or a salesperson, it's usually much more personalized than that. That person's done some research on your company, who you are, what you've been doing recently, and they'll try to craft their message around that. And there's plenty of room for generative AI to pick up that and take a look at some of the technographic information about your company and intent signals that you're showing, and maybe some information about you from LinkedIn or wherever, and try to combine that into a really compelling message and send that out so it feels much more like something that's very personal and crafted to you as opposed to a generalized message.
I'm curious, Cleve, in terms of on the marketing front, are there cases when you would advise not to use generative AI or staying away from Gen AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think it all comes down to your risk profile. Once again, just bringing it back to that. So we've seen some funny cases in the past where signals were interpreted not quite correctly. And we had to improve our system to deal with that. So for instance, in our email system, this was a few years back, we've since worked this kink out of the hose, but we had someone who we sent them an intro email saying, we'd love to have you try out our conversational email product. And they came back and said, oh, this sounds really interesting. Thank you so much for reaching out. Unfortunately, my mother just passed away, and so I'm going to be out of town for the next week. And so the AI promptly sent back an email and says, great, we're going to set you up with a meeting. And so pretty tone deaf in that regard. So we ended up profusely apologizing to that customer and sending them some flowers and things like that. But you can see how you can quickly get into trouble if these systems aren't properly counterbalanced.
Yeah, no, I think it sounds like it all goes back to kind of the red line, which is the risk profile, right? And kind of how you would develop some of that. And I think along with that, I'm sure that we also need to have engineering leaders to guide teams to navigate through this very quickly changing landscape of Gen AI and of AI technologies. So I'm curious, kind of, what is your philosophy on building and leading kind of high performing engineering teams?
Oh yeah, this is a concept that's near and dear to my heart, and I think about this a lot. And really have three major factors that I think through when I think about building teams. So first off, teams start with people. You have to think about how to get the right people into your team and cultivate people. And what do you look for in people? And three main qualities that I'm usually checking for. First off is really excellent communication skills. This kind of goes above and beyond everything else. software engineers are very technical positions. However, at the end of the day, we're all humans. We all have to interact with each other and interact within a team, and communication skills overperform in all working environments. So this is something we need to make sure that people have first and foremost. Um, then secondly, we need people with extraordinarily high aptitude that can learn new things quickly. Like I can't think of a single job that anyone I know has ever had where they dropped in, they knew everything that they needed to do on day one. They always have to learn things on the fly. They always have to be adapting. They always want to be growing. So you need people with that high aptitude to make sure they can adjust those transitions. And then thirdly, you need people who are incredibly passionate about what they do. And this usually reflects as like a self-starter type of quality. So if you like talk to people about like what they're excited about, or like what types of projects they've been taking on, or if they're doing anything outside of work, this is usually a really good signal. So I tend to look at those three things and try to find like a good balance between them. And usually that represents very, very good team members. You'll notice that I left out having like incredible technical expertise in particular areas. And while that can be important, I think it's generally outweighed by these things. And some of my colleagues that I think about in the past have come from like non-traditional backgrounds, and like where they started their job when I started working with them is very different than where they ended up their job because of their self-starter qualities, because of their high aptitude. So they're really able to like tackle whatever you're throwing in front of them. And these are usually the people I like when I think about moving on to new ventures and whatnot, people I think about bringing along on the ride with me.
Yeah, in terms of just, the people side of things, I think is completely right. In terms of there, Gen AI can replace a lot of things, right? But in terms of the communication, the aspect of like how people learn, I think that's still things that are very valuable, specifically in engineering teams, and to be able to also kind of work as a team to navigate through difficult situations.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, with generative AI tools coming out, they can help you learn in so many new ways, and good self-starter people will take advantage of that, and are playing around with these tools already to really expand themselves, expand their skill sets. There's a couple other things I wanted to say about building teams
Go
if
for
I've
it.
got
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, for sure.
So the second thing after like picking good people is really making sure I set up a good framework for them to operate within. So you need to like set a strategy. You need to like tell them what direction to go, and then you need to create like basic guidelines to keep them within whatever parameters you want to specify, and then make sure you give them autonomy within that. So you don't want to be like super micromanage you, being like, okay, you have to walk this very specific line that I'm giving you, but you do want to establish guidelines. You don't want to have one team going one direction, another team going another direction. You want to make sure people are generally aligned with each other. So a good framework can make sure that happens. And I really learned this lesson from, it's an American football coach named Bill Walsh. He was the coach of the
Yep.
49ers. And he had this awesome philosophy called the score takes care of itself.
Mhm.
And that was basically his philosophy. So he always made sure he was getting the right personnel. And then he always set up like operating procedures for like every single position within the organization, like from the players on the field all the way down to the people answering the phones. And he like was very specific about like, the guidelines that people should operate within. And he was adamant that if you did those two things, then the score would take care of itself. You would outscore the other team at the end of the day more often
Yeah.
than not. So that's a philosophy that's really resonated with me. So always trying to establish and think about that framework. And then you need to figure out what the score is. The equivalent is for building an engineering team also. And the
Yeah.
score is really long-term velocity.
Mhm.
And you always want to be making decisions that are enabling long-term velocity for your team. It's very easy to get caught up in making short-term decisions. And that will ultimately put you into a cycle where you're ignoring some long-term goals, and you might actually be accumulating more tech debt than you are solving with individual fixes, and you might end up like slowly dragging down your velocity. You may end up with negative velocity, where each change you're shipping is resulting in more tech debt than you're actually solving.
Yeah.
So anyways, this is a very tricky one to measure. There's a few systems which try to approximate it. So there's like DORA metrics and space metrics. And it's good to like really understand about these and think about where your team is and figure out what the best proxy is for modeling long-term velocity. And then like picking that for your team and driving that forward.
No, thank you, Cleve. I think a lot of those are really insightful kind of observations. And as we look into, we interact with a lot of engineering leaders, also a lot of founders, technical founders, who's trying to build teams that's trying to work in this fast-paced AI-driven environment. I'm curious, kind of what kind of advice would you have for these engineering leaders or founders that is looking to figure out how to navigate this fast-paced environment?
I think first and foremost, you want to figure out how to stay on top of what's changing. Things are constantly changing at an extremely high rate. And it's more than any single person can fit in their brain. I can test. If there's someone out there who knows everything about AI, hit me up. I'd love to talk with you. But I do feel like I have a bit of advantage in this particular space, not because I've been in AI for a long time, but because I come from the ad tech world. In the ad tech world, I would also classify as like moving extraordinarily fast and has a lot of deep concepts which are changing all the time. And it's too much to fit in any one person's brain. So I kind of have been thinking about how to stay on top of ad tech for a couple of decades now. And now I see AI becoming a massive trend, and I'm struggling to stay on top of it myself, and I find myself applying a lot of the same patterns. So I kind of have like a 3-step process for thinking about this. So one, there's general trends, and you always want to have like broad surface level knowledge of like general trends that are going on. So like there's always going to be new acronyms flying around. You should understand what those represent and generally what they mean, be able to use them in a conversation, like what is a RAG framework, et cetera. So just have like broad surface level knowledge for general trends. Make sure you've got coverage there. Then think about developments that are generally applicable to the field, like stuff like regulation. So there's going to be an enormous amount of regulation coming out around AI in upcoming years and decades, probably for the rest of our lives. Make sure you go below the surface on this stuff and really understand what it's trying to achieve and understand how it could potentially apply to you in the future, because it probably will. So again, figure out these trends that are kind of generally applicable and go a little bit deeper on there. And then figure out what your field is and go extraordinarily deep on that. Try to be the smartest person you know about your particular slice of AI. And continue working on that. Spend a little bit of time each week getting a little bit better. Just go extraordinarily deep. So that's kind of my 3-step process for staying on top of trends. Now, there's a lot more in the AI space than just kind of learning, right? So in particular, we have a ton of tools coming out right now. We have code assist tools. We have all kinds of agents to solve every problem out there. We want to understand how to utilize AI to improve workflows, generally speaking. But we always want to make sure we're using the right tool for the right job. People will try to sell you everything under the sun, saying it's like the complete magic bullet and it's going to solve all your problems. That tool does not exist. Again, hit me up if you can solve all my problems. But you want to like really understand what these tools are good at and what they're not good at, and figure out how to apply them to your life and to your work to speed things up and generally like reduce strain. As these tools continue to evolve, I would say, start learning about them now. Get that broad surface level understanding of all of them right now, and then go deeper on the ones that are really relevant to you, because the development of them is really heating up. A lot of money is flowing into the space. It's not going to slow down anytime soon. And so the way I see it is there's going to be like a major sea change in terms of how a lot of us do work. Certainly in terms of software engineers, how we're working right now is going to be a lot different than how we're working 10 years from now. So be ready for that sea change. Use these tools now so that when they actually do become like a huge difference maker that you can't ignore, you're in front of the trend, not behind the trend.
Yeah, those are amazing insights. And, we really always appreciate kind of, the involvement, Cleve, that you have with us, especially how you're always closely involved in the Next 47th executive network since its inception.
Yeah, the network has been
Yeah.
great. I think I've been part of it for about a year, and it's really gotten me a chance to connect with other executives who are kind of similar, like in a similar place in their career, and like trying to build relationships and see what's out there. And Next 47's done a really good job of adding programming to help me, not only connect with these other executives, but also to learn about different topics that I'm interested in particular about the venture capital space. So I'm a former entrepreneur, and learning about the VC world is enormously beneficial to me. And it's usually done in high pressure environments. And so being able to do this in a much more relaxed, friendly environment where there's like very low stakes and I can ask whatever questions and it doesn't matter if I sound like an idiot, like it's fantastic. So I've really appreciated that since day one.
Yeah, great to hear the feedback. I would love to also hear, if you can share your experience and what it's like collaborating with Next 47's global engagement go-to-market team members.
I feel like Next 47's really kind of always listened to me and like what I'm interested in, and has attempted to connect me with portfolio companies and other friendlies based on like what I'm looking for at the time. Like I don't think you've been like ever like pushing anything down my throat where it's like, okay, this is really not like a product I'm interested in buying. And it felt like it was like self-serving coming from you. It was always like based around my interests and what I was looking for and looking for development that I wanted to do. So I've always really appreciated that. So thank you.
Yeah, no, and I would appreciate you as well. In terms of just the insights and all the I think the advice that you've given for us, and along with that, what advice would you give to startups on how to maybe best leverage partnerships with investors like Next 47?
First off, I think being an executive or operating a successful startup is very much a contact sport. And it's really kind of about getting in touch with the right people at the right time and building relationships. And I think partnerships like this are very good at connecting me and other people with people in our field to help us learn more and just like expand and grow. And then these relationships are incredibly valuable because in the future, these could be connections that are amazing for like fundraising, or they could be like a vendor that I'm looking to purchase software from, or they could be a customer of mine, or maybe just a colleague. Like maybe it leads to a future job or someone I want to recruit or something like that. So you just never know what the future is going to bring, and to make sure you stay on top of that, you just always want to be building up those contacts.
Great. And talking about the future, if we were kind of to look ahead, if we can give one piece of advice to startups working on AI-driven solutions, kind of what would it be?
So AI, for most of us, AI is a tool in the toolbox, not the product itself. It's really important to differentiate these things. So first and foremost, always be focused on building a great product. And this is not about like plugging in the right AI at the right time. This is about talking with your customers, figuring out what problems they have to solve, and figuring out a good way to solve their problems. AI may be a good fit for solving their problems. It might not be. If it is, use AI to enhance what you're doing. If it's not, find another solution. But yeah, always remember, use the right tool for the right job.
Yeah, sounds to me what you're saying is that, in terms of AI, don't look at this as, hey, I have to use AI to solve a specific problem. It's problem first and customer first, and then whether or not AI is the right tool set to kind of use your judgment there, in terms of use it to solve a customer's problem. But at the end of the day, it's all about product. It's all about how you're solving a customer's problem first, and then AI is a tool, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the fundamentals of product development has not changed in this wave of AI. This is just the latest flavor and it's the newest tool in the toolbox. So everyone's really excited to shine it and use it and put it out there and put it in their marketing. And that's great. But the
Yeah.
fundamentals of product development have to stay the same.
Great. Thank you so much, Cleve, on for this conversation. Yeah, like I'm sure a lot of audiences would love to connect with you. So, where can our audience learn more about 6sense, and how would they be best connecting with you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So check us out at 6sense.com, the number six, and then SE.com. And then you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. tell me that you heard me on the podcast. I'd love to connect with you. I think I'm the only Cleve Pasarell on LinkedIn, so no problems there. But yeah, looking forward to hearing from you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Cleve, on taking some time to chat with us. This has been very enlightening in terms of kind of how we see the world from AI standpoint. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Albert.